Hello VC, this is the Blue Note Project, number 4156. The Freedom Rider, Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Lee Morgan, Wayne Shorter, Bobby Timmons, Jimmy Merritt, and of course, Art Blakey. This recording was recorded in over 2 days. The majority of it recorded May 27th, 1961. One song, Petty Larceny, was recorded February 18th, 1967. And this album would be the last in-session, in-studio recording of this edition of the Jazz Messengers. Now on side one it begins with Tell It Like It Is, and then the title composition, The Freedom Rider. But actually on that session, The Freedom Rider was recorded before Tell It Like It Is. And since The Freedom Rider is also the title of the album, I would like to start with talking about the Freedom Rider. The Freedom Rider, and you have to give some context on this. In 1961, the United States Supreme Court ruled discrimination on interstate travel and the facilities related to it were illegal. That meant not only the buses and trains, but it also meant the facilities connected to it, such as lunch counters, restrooms, and the like. And there was a group, an interracial group called CORE, that said they were going to test these rulings, these decisions in the South by riding Greyhound Trailway buses and attempting to use, to eat at lunch counters, use restrooms, and in many cases they were met with resistance, which included outright violence. So that was the context of the Freedom Rides, and this was something, of course, Blakey was aware of when he went into the studio on May 27th, because shortly before that there was a couple of incidents where the buses were bombed and the Freedom Riders were attacked. So Freedom Rider is a 7-minute, 28-second drum solo. And what's amazing is how Art uses the whole drum kit to convey a sense of momentum, movement, progress. He uses the tom-toms, that gives it sometimes a dark feeling. I guess that he was trying to convey a sense of danger in this struggle. And the great thing about this conceptual piece, this extended drum solo, is nothing is overwrought. I mean, Art is always swinging, and he's swinging while he's doing this concept piece, and it really gives a sense of, when I say movement, you get the sense of not only, the movement in the struggle for civil rights, but just the whole sense of movement, as in these people are boarding buses and they're riding throughout the segregated South. It's one of the great extended drum solos that's ever been recorded, in my opinion. That's Art Blakey's Freedom Rider. Now the first tune, but which was actually recorded after Freedom Rider, is Wayne Shorter's "Tell It Like It Is," and "Tell It Like It Is a shuffle blues. And what's great about this recording and throughout the album, but especially here, you really get a sense of Blakey as a band leader, how he led the band. Art wasn't the type of guy that shows up to the studio and he's got his compositions and he's passing it out to members saying, hey, when we get to this point, you do this, I want you to convey it like this. Now, he usually let that be done by other members of the band. In this edition of the Jazz Messengers, Shorter took a lot of that responsibility. Lee did some of it on the tunes that he wrote, but what Art did was to make sure everyone played with utmost integrity, and he would just push him. He would just push you, and you can hear it here because he's giving verbal encouragement to all the band members. You can hear him during Timmons' solo. He's actually telling him, tell it like it is. And when Jimmy Merritt, he's telling him, walk, walk. And you can hear him behind Lee. Art is, he's, once the tune is counted off, Art is running the ship. And the next song composition, which is on begin side 2, is El Toro. And El Toro has, I'd say, a little Latin flavor to it, and it's really noticeable in that Wayne Shorter really gets into his Coltrane bag. You really can discern the Coltrane influence that Wayne had, especially at that time. It's really noticeable, and once again you have to listen to Art behind these soloists, because you can hear just how complex his ideas were on the drum kit, especially when Lee Morgan gets the solo. Also, when Timmons is soloing, Art is he's no mere timekeeper. So that's just an outstanding, another outstanding example of what Art did in leading the band. Now the next song, which was composition, which was recorded February 18th, 61, is Petty Larceny, which is a gospel blues, but I prefer to call it a neck-pecking tune. It's one of those tunes where you just, you're into it. You just close your eyes and go with the flow. And on this tune, Morgan's solo is the epitome of a hard bop solo. It is, it is exhibit A of a hard bop solo. His playing is, in a prime example of what, is called the power of badness in terms of the hard bop movement. He brings so much fire. When Lee Morgan finishes, you don't talk about, you don't talk in technical terms how brilliant his solo was. You just look at the person next to you, or even if you're by yourself and you're just going, Lee Morgan's bad. He's just a bad man, and that's it. You don't have to get into these terms. Talking about notes and all that stuff. Just say Lee Morgan's a bad man, and the feeling is conveyed. The next tune is Blue Lace, and it's a waltz. Timmons starts it off. He's You know, he has a nice, lovely flowing solo, and then Morgan brings the fire. But really, the star on this tune is Shorter. Shorter is just upping the game in terms of the complexity of his ideas and his playing. It's just, this is a really outstanding solo. And then once again, behind these musicians, you gotta listen to Art. You gotta listen to Art because he is pushing them. He is propelling these guys onto, you know, just top-notch improvisation, and you know, he is a propelling force. He lights a fire under these guys, and they always respond. So, you know, that's the Freedom Rider. It's an excellent example of how Art led a band from the drum kit. It's also one of the great extended drum solos on record, and it is one of those recordings I don't think gets, you know, a lot of mention in the Jazz Messenger, not enough mention in the Jazz Messenger discography, because it is excellent. And this, the 1960 edition of the Jazz Messengers, in my opinion, was the best of all the configurations. So the Freedom Rider, Art Blakey, and the Jazz Messengers. And I'd like to thank Sher for bringing me in on this project and allowing me to contribute. I'll see you guys down the line. Thanks, VC, and take care.